Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Matter of Trust. Today, me and Patrick, you know the hosts, are going to talk about silence. Today, in society, silence is a thing that we really actually get to really feel in terms of sound, at least. We talked a little bit about the last episode about like the subtle listening and the gross listening. And today we're going to go a little bit deeper into the subject of that to link those two topics. So, Patrick, maybe you would like to talk a little bit about why we need silence and why silence is important these days, especially.
Yeah, I've been thinking that the short answer, the place to start, why we need silence is we need silence to be able to hear ourselves. Or it could be also said, some would say, to hear our higher self, or to hear some universal self. The thing is that today, especially, we have so many inputs, and our brain, no matter whether we think that the brain is processing something that we decide to listen to or take in, we think it's doing that, no matter or not what we think, it's always processing stuff. Always. If you're not aware of it, it's just subconscious. So the thing is, with a lot of input, and that's the thing about today, there's so much input with media, because a lot of people have access to computers, smartphones, and internet. Being online, there's a constant stream of input fed to the user. So this makes it difficult, or if we're not aware of it, to avoid noise, one might say. Noise in the sense that we get input that we might not really need or not be interested in, and we don't always realize it, how much it affects us. That's a bit about why today is especially important, is because the brain needs breaks to be creative, to have original ideas, have a chance to produce something. It's okay. We get input. That's okay in between the breaks, but we need to have some silence where things can land, thoughts can settle. So it's not like crazy busy in there all the time, more than it has to. The brain will be plenty efficient as creating activity for you if you let it. So we don't need to feed it constantly. And yeah, that can take some deliberate choice about obtaining silence in life. How does it ring with you? Or
I totally agree that when we're listening, when we're silent, we actually get to listen to ourselves more effectively. Because so many people has our ears these days because of the reasons that you mentioned as well. And it's just so important to be able to navigate that because many people are easily lost within this vast labyrinth of people to listen to and media to be affected by and influences in general all around. So I think it's very good points that you come up with. I think we need silence because it teaches us to distinguish our thoughts and our energy from other people's experiences of their energy and their thoughts and stuff like that. Because we're all intertwined somehow, we can all listen to each other's energies and thoughts. But listening to ourselves is more complicated. It's because of this noise that's around us, and with traffic outside and motorways, freeways, big cities, it's even more difficult to do that. The thing is, like, when you learn to cultivate silence, you actually get to see that silence is everywhere at any point, anytime. And this is a far-fetched thought for many people, because if well, if I get somewhere where there's no cars, for example, or no people around, there's always the trees or the birds singing or something like that. But that's besides the point. The point is not silence in like hearing things, in like noises. It's also internal. It's also thoughts. It's also feelings that speak. It's these impressions that you have within yourself. These internalized this internalized presence that always talks. This little voice inside yourself. It's also some kind of noise. Yeah, noise.
Yeah, that's like the deeper layer of that's because I also thought that had the thought that yeah, we can turn down noise externally, like the very easy to grasp idea of sound, or so, like we can turn that down. We can be in silent environments, and yes, there will be something, but more silent than usual or busy places. And then with enough external silence, maybe some of the silence, some of the inside will start to also calm down, get more silent, and then we might see a connection there, because it's totally about that. It's not, I mean, if it's silent, calm inside, then yeah, then actually the external noises might not bother.
No, not at all. The thing is about like finding that peace of mind within yourself, and that starts with being silent with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you can kind of see noise and silence as light and dark, for example. So when you get used to a lot of noise, for example, and you're trying to find this silence, it's a symptom that you're actually craving to listen more to yourself. By cultivating these extremes and kind of finding a balance point in between them, we get to see life in a new perspective. Because silence is often depicted as nothing. There's nothing going on. There's nothing happening. It's just pure. I'm not being productive. I'm not doing anything. It's just there's nothing, and that's simply not true. It's simply another process to the opposite of noise, the opposite of the obvious. It's the more subtle layer of something already in progress.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like when you sit with silence and it gets quiet all of a sudden. It's not like nothing's happening. Like you mentioned in the beginning, there's a lot of things happening still. The mind never stands still. We're always in a state of creation, always creating something from either the subconscious or consciously, and the ability to tap into that and be a conscious creator of your own life, which I'm a big speaker of, is tapping into that silence within you and really being present with that silence.
Mm-hmm.
Because there can happen a lot of things in your life. You can feel like there is a lot of turmoil or bad things happening or good things happening also. That creates a lot of generates a lot of noise, a lot of emotions, a lot of impressions.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to stand in that with a peace of mind, while being aware that, okay, well, there's a high energy here, okay, well, there's a low energy here. To be able to stand in the middle of that with peace of mind and still be balanced is a great skill to have, because then nothing can really tip you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the way I see it, one of the main objectives here with this kind of practice that we're also going into. Now that we are talking a little bit about how to experience silence.
Yeah, that might be the next step.
Yeah. So how to experience silence, because again, we're used to city life, many of us, and there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of siblings, a lot of parents, a lot of things you have to go to, and you have to sit in a bus with many other people, and there's a lot of noise. Even when I'm sitting discussing this, there's a lot of noise. so how can you actually experience silence? And I have a couple of techniques for this. And they all require some kind of meditation. Because meditation, like just as silence is an expression of sound, stillness is an expression of physique that is similar to silence. So when you sit still, you don't have to sit cross-legged or like this or anything like that. You simply just sit in the chair and close your eyes and just observe, breathe, whatever you prefer. I have 3 things that I want to share with you. And one technique is that you start to listen to all kinds of sounds. Just listen to everything. Be totally overstimulated, because at some point you eventually just give up and you don't want to do that anymore. So that's one way to do it. And you can totally do that. I wouldn't recommend it, but you do you. You do you. Another one is to sit and notice the space and emptiness in between your thoughts and sounds. So for example, when 2 cars drive by, one at one time, and maybe half a second later, another car comes by, you would think, well, there's a linear sound to it. It never stops. That's not true. There's 2 cars, right? So there's 2 points of sounds. That means there's space in between that is not sound. And that little space, it requires practice, I know. But you can actually listen to the space. You can actually feel the space in between. And it's really interesting. It's the same thing when you breathe. Like, you don't think about it, for example. You breathe in and you breathe out. And we're so used to this that we don't think there's a middle point in between that. But what happens in the middle? It's the silence, it's the stillness, it's the very center point of everything. So you can do that with breathing as well. I'll make that a 4th. One technique that is the next one I want to share with you is called noting.
Can I add something? Can I add something to what you just said? Just a short, because I think it was a good example with the cars, and like one could of course argue that, but I can hear the second car before the first has fully gone, but it's not the same intensity of sound. And once you get curious, you practice the curiosity and awareness that they are 2 different sources. Then you could get curious about the space between the car. There is a physical space. And then, yes, maybe the sound is not fully gone, but it is kind of gone enough when the first one fades and the other one is still fading in. You don't have maximum at the same time. And these spaces is very interesting to get curious about. Just like the breathing you said, you can get very curious about the space between inhaling, exhaling. And that somehow makes it seem to grow or get more obvious with practice. That was just,
That's a very good point and very good addition to that, I would say. So thank you for sharing that too, and putting your hand up. So yeah, noting. Noting is a technique that I started out by doing when I decided that I want to have a regular meditation practice. I started with noting. And noting is a simple technique where you just sit and you breathe, and you just only focus on the breathing. And eventually, something's going to come by, like a thought, a feeling, sound or something. And the only thing you do with that impression is that you just note it. So if it's a sound, you just simply note it, sound, let it go, you come back to the breathing. When you see a thought coming in and you begin to think, you just simply note, a thought, and let it go. Continue to the breathing. By not trying to stop or grasp this this thought or sound or whatever it is, you actually get more freedom. You get more observant and aware. Because when you try to stop a thought, you enforce it and it grasps more power of your attention. And your attention is everything, essentially. So simply allow it to be and go back to the breathing. And then noticing the space in between, like we mentioned before, in between those, when you have breathed in, you get to that point where you finish with breathing in and let go. And you kind of get to a point again where you have to breathe in. So that space in between each time, just notice that. because essentially that is where the silence will grow from. It has a different expression in the beginning because it's stillness cultivated, because it's movement, but it transforms, transmutes into silence and a practice of silence within yourself, because you start to listen to all the things that many do not listen to. Many listen to either breathing in or breathing out. That's it. So that's a couple of techniques that you can use. Just to summarize them very quickly. One technique is listening to all sorts of sounds till you kind of, like Patrick also mentioned, kind of can distinguish them and kind of be curious about the different kinds of sources of sound, and then realize there's something beyond that. There's something extra to that. There's something in between. And start to be curious about that. That's one way of doing it. I would call it listening until you eventually want to stop. So that's how I would put it. That's one way of doing it. Another one is to sit and notice the space and emptiness in between thoughts and sounds. And the last one is noting, where you note the quality of what's happening internally in your experience. It can be thoughts, sounds, emotions, such, and letting it go, and just noticing what's beyond that.
Mm. So by noting, you don't mean note it down. Just noting, noticing, in the head,
Right. It's simply one thought that you give to it. So if there's a thought coming, I need to take the dishwasher, I need to empty it and fill it up. Oh, thought. And just sit with the silence.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you've noticed that it's just a thought, you have no reason to dig into it, because you're already engaged in a practice as of the moment when you're sitting and meditating, for example.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I remember that noting exercise. I also remember doing it. I mean, I would do it, but to make it easier for me, I encountered this funny version where where I say, okay, I imagine I'm an innkeeper and I'm standing in the doorway, the entrance to the inn, and all these thoughts occurring, everything hitting me. I have to welcome it. I'm the happy innkeeper. I have this from a book I read. So I have to really make sure that I'm happy as I say, welcome. And if it's just a random thought, I just say, welcome thought. And I make sure to kind of put a smile on my face. And I say it out loud, actually in the beginning to make it easy. And with feelings, it's supposedly good to try and name it. Welcome frustration, irritation, sadness, anger, joy. And if you start to think, oh, what am I doing? I'm silly. I'm crazy. Then you say, welcome, doubt. There's room for you too. It made it easier for me to get started with this. Just really say it out loud. You also get an idea of it's getting to know yourself, actually.
I really like that. It's an extra nice way of doing it, because it becomes playful. And the whole meaning is not to just be straightforward with it, just to have fun with it. So that is nice. It's very nice. I'll definitely try that as well when I'm noting next time. Awesome.
Makes does something. It helps.
Definitely. So when and where is the question?
Yeah.
Because we mentioned that there's a lot of noise outside and inside, and there's noise everywhere, and we also mentioned and there's silence everywhere, even though it's a little bit harder to see because it's subtle. It's not like it's not there, but it's subtle. One example I have of that, I just wanted to mention because it was a fun example I realized earlier today, that at my mom's bathroom, there's this light that's kind of like very fast flickers, and you can nearly not see it, but you could just see that it flickers. And I was like, how does the moment look like when it flickers, when it doesn't flicker, when it's just like dark? And then the next moment is light and then dark again. I realized how short moments are, because it flickers so fast, and there's a complete moment of complete darkness, and then there's a complete moment of complete light, and it happens within like a millisecond or even less. It's I was just like, oh, this is fascinating, just sitting there and taking a shit and kind of seeing this thing. It was yeah. So the
Always.
point is, that if you see the light as sound, for example, the darkness is silence. And so even though it looks like there's light all the time, it has to come from silence, because without the silence, there would be nothing to feel. There would be no sound to fill that void. So silence is everywhere, simultaneously with yourself. I've never heard a tree speak, though, but I can definitely see it, and I can see when it's when the sun shines on it, it's light and such. So, and also I know that it has a frequency that you can communicate with. There's projects in Italy, in Damano, about this very thing, called plant music and communication with plants. Very interesting project, though. But still, there's communication going on in that silence. And my point is, to get back on track, is that it is anywhere, everywhere, with practice. In the beginning, it might be good to practice in private, so you can get used to being in silence, and the gross silence, like noises and such, physical noises, or noises coming from physicality and such. So those kind of noises, cars, things. But you can gradually transition into practicing in public, because even though there's a lot of people around you and it might seem like a noisy place, there's still silence to be found. There's people walking within the crowd that also understands and listens to silence. And they cultivate that. They have an energy field that shines this silence as well, because they're walking with the silence, walking in silence. So yeah, it's everywhere, anytime, and having a peaceful mind, being in a peaceful setting, cultivates that, and a peaceful mind will notice the silence. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, actually, I was reminded of, before I was thinking too much about the use of meditation. I remember once being in Istanbul, very busy capital of Turkey, and it was chaos. It was just people and sounds everywhere, like external sounds. But there, in that chaos, it just suddenly stopped and sat down and just decided not to participate. And somehow that just felt so calm. I just felt so calm. So I realized, hey, I can sort of disconnect. I can pull the plug out, and then I'm just then I can feel calm and quiet. That was interesting. It's just because when you mention it, it's that was an example, and it didn't happen with a lot of practice. It was not conscious practice anyway. So sometimes, yeah.
That's the thing, like silence is everywhere. It's a matter of what we give our attention to.
Maybe it's called zoning out sometimes.
Yeah. That could be a very very contemporary term to that. Definitely. I've definitely heard that a lot of times. People zoning out when they're actually just tuning in. It's
yeah,
interesting.
So that's probably when and where you also gave an example that showed it could be anywhere, right? Yeah, I feel it just helps to seek, just to mention, somehow feel like mentioning nature. You mentioned natural sounds, also somehow they are not as disturbing. There might be something, you know, in our genes, some sort of something that we are born with, or that is inherited down the generations, about nature, making us more at ease. It's also, yeah, I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people backing that up with research. People go to nature to
You know,
cultivate
like
this.
an example of why that is that, you know, again, trees, for example. Trees don't speak. I've never heard a tree speak, like at least not verbally like we do. But they're still alive. So they certainly have the same qualities as we have. They are alive, they're living, they are moving, they're growing, they're dying, they're having a life, just like any one of us. And so you can say that, well, when you're in nature with trees and bees and all these kind of animals and living things that are all alive but do not speak, at least not verbally, you kind of get tuned into that naturalness of silence, because silence is a natural aspect that the nature is very aware of. It has to be. It has to have that polarity to even exist with sounds, you know, so we can hear bees buzz, or the wind in the trees, or cars outside, or you and me speaking to one another, you know. So nature understands the value of silence. It has cultivated this for many years, man. Yeah. So one of the reasons why it feels so good is that when we're not used to that silence and we go into nature, we go into we go to a mentor. We essentially go to a mentor. You go to someone that already has experienced what you are desiring most innately to experience, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. And you go have a conversation with your mentor, and your mentor shows you the quality, the value of that which you're looking for. Same thing.
I guess, yeah, talking of nature and using it as an example of a mentor, that ties in with us being connected, and us, like everything being connected. Like, actually, nature is not out there and then we are something else. And nature is sorry if there's background noise, but nature is also us. We are part of nature, and this, yeah, that's a layer of understanding, or like something to we can get curious about. And some will be like, what is that? That sounds weird. And others will be like, yeah, I understand. And maybe we just understand because we've been in nature and felt like, whoa, I just feel at home, or I feel I'm one with this, feel really good. Many people have tried feeling so good, even weird new places. They've never been there before, somewhere in nature, and they just feel so good. So there's something so familiar, like we easily just meld into it or blend in with it. Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Very good point. Definitely. So you also asked a question earlier about the price of having no silence and the benefits of having plenty. So what are your thoughts upon that?
Yeah. The price of having no silence. That's something I thought about, because I realized it's just not that automatic. At least not all the time in my life. If I'm not paying attention, so much is going on with different people, and and different recommendations and this and that, opportunities around me that could distract me or tempt me. And it's just, there's so much of it, people and possibilities, that the price is that I don't really get to choose if I don't give myself room with basically nothing. If I don't say a big no, just sometimes, and then leave, like reaching, if I don't reach for silence like that, then I'm not getting into the creative space where my brain can start being creative. Yeah, having ideas, reflecting, land impressions, and then it's more messy. I mean, I know it when I lie down and to go to bed at night. Then I can feel how calm was the end of my day, especially, but also the day, how much happened and how much did not happen. And if I don't, if I have some days where I don't wind down as much, and the evening is quite fast-paced or hectic, a lot of stuff going on, then I don't fall asleep that easily, for example. So that's just a very practical thing. With the sleep, the quality of the sleep can be affected, but also, yeah, our creativity, our ability to get ideas that are original, with enough time spent without having the silent moments, we can actually maybe start to question whether or not we can come up with original things, because all the time we're just consuming, receiving, and just using our resources and digesting that. And yeah, I know that my creativity is affected. Actually, the highest price I can think of right now of not having silence is possibly that it's really hard to find inner peace without silence. And not having the ability to feel and experience inner peace, that I think is a very high price. And yeah, to me, that seems big. And how about you? You recognize some of these, what you can think of with the price paid by having no silence?
I would say that I've come to the conclusion that there's no such thing as no silence. But there's only giving more attention to noise. So whether it's a deliberate conscious action or a subconscious action, it's still somehow a choice. And it can be such a thing as we're so used to living in noise that actually it gives us some kind of comfort, that we can hear people talk. Some people probably know from when they were kids, for example, that as soon as the vacuum cleaner were on, they were sleeping a sound, because that was just so soothing somehow. All my brothers have had that, and I've had multiple friends that have had it the same way, and somehow that works. And that's because we're used to this sound. We're used to our mom and dad's vacuum cleaning the floor, and this is somehow something that gives us comfort, because we're kind of been taken care of in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's the way I see it, because silence is everywhere, like I mentioned multiple times in this this talk we already had. And without that, without the silence, there wouldn't be no space for sound.
Have you
So
have you always had inner silence? I mean,
no.
you can turn it up and down, right? Because if we frame the question like not no silence, but what if it's turned way down? What is the price that you experience? Why would you meditate to bring it back more? give it more focus, for example, there must be maybe because you want to avoid a price that has to be paid when it's turned down.
I think it's more about that question is more about what's the benefits
All
of
right.
silence, because having no silence is not a thing. There's a thing of experiencing no silence.
Yeah, so that's
It's
how the
not.
question should be phrased, basically.
It depends,
I
because
think.
some people would ask that question, which is also something that we talked about before we started this talk. That some people would ask because they're not aware of this fact that they have no silence. They do not know silence, and they may not be very close with silence,
Mm.
or be very aware of how that feels like to be silent and be comfortably silent. But it's not like it's alien to them. It's a part of who they are. Like their whole body is silent. I've never seen my nipples talk ever, or my nails, or my skin. Never. The only thing I've seen talk is my speaking cords, my mouth, and my nose. Maybe sometimes, maybe some cracks, and that's it. So I think that the question is framed right because we also have audience that also would frame it that way.
Mm-hmm.
We might frame it differently.
There's a lot of
But
interpretation going on.
right,
Actually,
right. Also because what I'm thinking when I see a question such as that is it's transformational language. So I'm being very aware of, okay, what exactly am I saying, and what does this actually express to the universe around me?
Mm.
Because it's creative, So when you have no silence, you mentioned that there's potential that you will give more of your attention to noise than you will to actually being silent and listen to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not playing with that. I'm not playing with that. So that's why I'm being very concise in such manners when I'm getting questions like that.
Mm-hmm.
And many people might even not get what I'm getting at because I'm using this transformational language to kind of show people that, well, if you say this, you're actually saying this and this, and yeah, it's one of the things I'm still learning to cope with, because even Buddha back in his days were like he wouldn't he would go down where people were and talk their language, even though he knew differently, because it couldn't hurt him. So yeah.
You also still wanted to use the question because you somehow recognize the value that it can have. So maybe because you have been another place or state than where you are now, or because you heard others, right, talk about it. So these things are always relevant in different points for the sake of a process or transforming. Or,
Right. There's also the philosophy that you're talking to a 5-year-old, younger part of yourself when you're talking. Someone that is not exactly where you are today and haven't quite got integrated all the things that you have so far. And so it's important to transmit that message to that younger version of yourself, which is another one out there. Probably even someone watching this show. So let's jump to the benefits of having plenty of silence, or being at silence. So I have noticed 5 different things that I wanted to write down when I was asked the question.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things was that, and we touched this very lightly, you get to know yourself better because you get to listen to yourself, and you can go to the last episode and kind of dig deep into that topic, because listening to yourself also requires the silence that we're talking about now.
Mm-hmm.
The second is that you become comfortable and peaceful anywhere in any situation. You get a peace of mind wherever you are. Like we mentioned before, Patrick sitting in Istanbul, and suddenly it was just calm and peaceful for him because he sat down and chose to just stop up, and be still and sit in silence. And me walking into a metro in Copenhagen and just walking with a sense of silence among like thousands of people at once, and still having the sense of silence that I do not let anyone interrupt, is the thing that you cultivate when you cultivate being silent, or silencing yourself from inside. Being aware there's always something, being aware that there's always something communicating through you, even though you're silent. Like sometimes silence can be the answer to a question. Like yeah, sometimes that can be the case. That's not a thing. The third one that I have is that you increase your awareness and your conscious participation in life. Again, you listen to yourself, you listen to a whole universe guiding you. So you actually become more conscious, you become more aware of everything around you and yourself and your part in the whole where you are right now. So you get more attuned to guidance. In fact, the fourth I've written down is that you become more aware of the influences around you. So you become more aware of whose voices am I hearing in my head? Like what kind of people am I listening to? What kind of people am I shaping my life around? What kind of influences do I have? Am I influenced by music or artists or whatever? You get more attuned to this as well. Which also means the fifth one, that you can choose more effectively in being more authentic, you influencing yourself. And this is probably the biggest one, I would say, because you get to choose your own life, you get to be the conscious creator. So all in all, the benefits of being silent is you become more conscious, you become a conscious creator. So if you desire a specific life and you want to create your own life, silence is inevitable. Silence is something you have to get used to. Because this is where there's a principle in Taoism that says that nothing can be complete without being incomplete. And you can kind of see the completeness as sound because it's creation. You want to get something out there. You want to create a sound that someone can understand, like me speaking to you right now. But for that to happen, there has to be a void, there has to be an emptiness where that sound can kind of come from. Because if there's nothing to fill out, well, where's it supposed to be? I mean, it cannot be anywhere. So this is the same principle, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This also sounds like very beneficial. I would say that I recognize it very much, especially the last part when you mentioned about you get to choose. You become aware and you get to choose things in your life. It just flashed to my mind that when things just flow, and I seem to use very little energy, but somehow I'm so efficient. And that's because I'm very aware and I just steadily, calmly choose what should be in my life and what I want to create, what choice am I making in my life. So this is so funny because it's kind of calm and slow in a way, but so efficient. So it ties in with, I think, especially 4 and 5 you mentioned.
Yeah, and I want to add something to that as well, because it kind of adds to the idea of ego and the universe, how to let go of the ego and let the universe take control. Well, it is in control. It's an illusion that you have control because you really have nothing. You can choose your path consciously, but everything else is God acting through you, the universe acting through you. It's just you have to navigate. You're the captain, and for example, the ship is not driven by you steering the wheel. You simply steer the direction. It is the wind, it is the water that carries you on a sail ship, for example. that is not you. You're just navigating it. This is the same thing. So you choose the direction. You let God take care of you. Let the universe take care of you. The wind, the water, it's all part of God, all part of the universe. I just wanted to put that in there as well, because it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think, and even if anybody was thinking it that doesn't make sense, then I would say I have not met a person who well, I could observe that they controlled everything in life. Yes, they might try to control everything, but at any time, any moment, something could surprise them. Something could happen. We simply cannot control everything in life. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So it's a lot of trust in just letting the universe do its thing through you. And we're all learning this step by step, because once you elaborate that that faith, that trust, it expands, and then you become knowledgeable again. You become someone who doesn't know, because you reached a new state of knowledge, and then you have to integrate something new to achieve a higher form of that knowledge. Same knowledge, but just an advanced form of it.
It's also, did I lose it? What did you say just before that?
Which thing?
Faith, trust, faith. You have to let go of the details. Yes, that's the thing.
Yes.
Letting go of all the details. That's kind of like letting the universe, letting God, letting whatever you think you are letting when you don't try to control. So yeah, you set a course. But yeah, then you don't spend so much energy on the details, and then it feels, you can kind of relax into it. And things can move from outside. It can also seem that, whoa, you're moving fast, but inside you're just like, I'm just in the zone. Because you're letting things happen also. Yeah.
Right. And it can seem and start like nothing is happening at all, like absolutely nothing when you sit in stillness, but just wait a little bit longer. Just try it. See what happens. I dare you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that suggestion.
Right. So do you have any more benefits you want to mention for having plenty of silence?
Well, then it's just maybe you also didn't you mention that actually, but the flip side of what I mentioned to downsides, if that was less inner peace, less inner calm, then the benefits surely are more inner peace and inner calm. So yeah, it's just, as you said, you don't have the sound if there's not a void of silence. You don't have one without the other. So yeah, it's the flip side.
So let's talk about like the discomfort of silence, because like we mentioned earlier, like it might be discomfortable for some people to sit with silence, because then the monkey mind starts to say you need to take the dishwasher, and you need to do this, you need to take this and that, and do laundry, whatever. There's so many things you have to do. The monkey mind starts to jump, and you start to go to all sorts of fantastic places in your mind, but you're really just sitting there and being distracted by noises in your head. So it can kind of get, some people get a discomfort for sitting in silence because they're so unused to it. It's like anything else. You become a discomfort about anything that you're not used to. So it's the same thing with silence. Again, it's not like nothing is happening. It's just that you're not aware of what's happening. That's all it is. And you can cultivate that awareness step by step.
Yeah.
It really is about like the discomfort. It's really about the industriousness of the ego. It's the mind that always creates. It's the ego that actually wants to engage and act on things because somehow you think this is the way to do everything. But again, if you act on everything, there's things you're missing. We call this restlessness in today's language. When we actually have cultivated that in extreme measures. Yeah, and it's a mental expression of putting more attention or even value to noise. That's actually what you do. You put more value or attention to the noise that happens inside you or around you. So yeah.
Yeah, so
I think that's why you have that discomfort regarding silence. I remember that for myself, at least, that I would think that if I sit with silence, well, there cannot be silence at all. I remember thinking like at some point, but the truth is it's always there, and it's just a matter of the attention that you put on things. So
yeah, I have experienced the restlessness in my life too, and yeah, definitely think there's a link there. Discomfort. I was also thinking that there are some tweaking, micromanaging that is possible in these situations. Things I did myself is, okay, what if I try silence in nature? As nature, we mentioned nature before, and that might be easier if it's a place that you feel this place is beautiful. It might be easier to actually accept that nothing else has to be going on for a while than just being there. That can be a little micromanaging. Another one is, I think of three. Another one is, make yourself a good cup of tea or whatever, coffee, or drink just water from your beautiful favorite glass or mug. Just do a little bit something that shows you I'm treating myself. And it's not like you're constantly then sipping from the glass, but it's making the situation a little nicer as you go into also like choose the best chair you have. I mean, or the best place to sit if you're sitting. So that's another little thing. And then the third is it's okay also to try guided meditations. For example, if people guide a meditation to help one relax, get calm, feel inner peace, silence, stillness, then usually it's also not speaking all the time. Usually there's plenty of slow speaking and spaces in between, so the silence is also practiced in these cases.
Yeah, so have you ever experienced this discomfort of silence yourself?
I have. I could feel discomfort if I didn't schedule time for myself, because I can look at a calendar, for example. It's not like it's always full, but if I was very optimistic and saying I'm doing this and this and I have plenty of time, then actually the discomfort of silence can be that do I have time for it, or like, does it fit in? I'd say so I should also have more time than I actually spend in silence. But yeah, now it's funny because it's harder for me to think of the discomfortable situations right now. And I guess that's a good thing. I just remembered that in the morning it's so nice when I wake up. It's easier and comfortable to be silent. Somehow I've been silent all night, and until it's broken, either by me saying something, talking to someone, or someone talking to me, or whatever, someone turning on a radio, or before it's broken, I can sort of maintain that silence that was throughout the night. I can slowly pour a cup of something, make some breakfast, and be slow, be silent, be in that state. It's in the morning. I don't know. Yeah. I think it's because we were silent all night.
Yeah, like we're coming out of sleep. We're coming out of this state of a deeper level of experience. I think when you're sleeping, it's a theta state, and you go to delta also. I think so. I'm not an expert in this, but but you go to these deeper states of experience, and to go to awakened state, which would be I think a beta, no alpha, would be there's a slow, gradual change in that. So you start out by coming from that silence that you're mentioning, very scientifically, and you go into these states of activity, which is usually the more alpha or beta states. Um, yeah, yeah. So that makes totally sense, I think. Definitely.
Yeah, I bet if people want to look up these references that you make to these states, I heard them before. I cannot explain them, but I know it's a thing.
Nah, me too. Me too. I'm not even sure it's that order, but at least it's out there, and then people can make their own. You can make your own research on it, and you'll be a lot more knowledgeable about this than we ever were. So
yeah,
good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, always good to have something to geek out on.
Definitely. So yeah, do you have any more questions regarding any of this, and anything you have come to mind while we have been talking about this topic?
Actually, I just liked how it was easy to see how we like to shift into looking at the benefits. I mean, even trying to look at some things that are not benefits, then it's just when you know there are benefits, it's just, I think we're a testament to the fact that once you know of the benefits, you want to shift the focus there. So that's something I noticed in this talk, because it's just, yeah, there's not really any going back, because it's really nice to get to know yourself, to feel stillness in different situations. Yeah, feel calm.
All right. So let's for fun's sake use the last 2 minutes or so, 2 or 3 minutes, just to sit in silence all together. I mean, why not? We have a lot of time. We have discussed, I think, pretty much everything we wanted to talk about. So why not just sit and experience silence together?
That's a good idea.
All right. So we're not gonna guide or anything. I just think that we sit in silence.
Let's say, yeah, 2 minutes. All right. Thank you very much for that suggestion. Nice way of ending this. And thank you all for participating and joining in. Also, especially maybe if you're courageous enough to sit in silence with us. I'm Patrick. My co-host is Yeshua. Okay, minor detail on the screen. And this is a matter of trust. See you.